there's no better time to talk about segments we've discussed previously that we need to really. Was it? It might have been last week or the week before, where we were talking about Irish music and
Mm.
kind of the prominence in certain genres of Irish music. So St.
Yeah,
Patrick's
yeah.
Day feels like a good place to bring that in.
It's as good a point as any, isn't it, to talk about Irish music, and in particular that it's that sort of punk and post-punk and
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the genre has a sort of defined name, but a kind of 2018, 19 onwards kind of aggressive stuff that is, very much Joy Division. It's like The Fall.
Mm.
It's anti-establishment, I would say, to a certain degree. And it's kind yeah, I suppose new wave punk is probably the best way to put it. But
Mm.
bands like that and bands around that sort of scene and genre have been predominantly Irish, or a lot of the very best ones I have for my money.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Fontaines, I thought, led the surge in terms of that
Mm.
genre. The post-punk poets, as you say, I don't think they've really
Yeah.
put a foot wrong since
No, I
breaking
would
through.
definitely agree. Those three records have been like inch perfect, I would say. They're all
Yeah.
brilliant. And I've seen them on sort of every tour of every album, sort of progressing through kind of bigger and bigger venues. And each time they are fantastic. They're brilliant. I
Yeah.
saw them in right at the end of 2019. It was one of the final gigs before the old pandemic. And they just blew me away. And I've kind of been hooked on them ever since, to be honest.
Yeah. I think I've also mentioned on the recent podcast that he reminds me of Ian Curtis. Um, Green
Yeah,
Chatting, is it?
100%. Green
Yeah.
Chatton is the front man.
The way he moves, and
He's definitely
yeah,
got a Curtis vibe to him, but I think he's kind of like James Joyce in the way that he professes his love and hatred for Ireland all kind of rolled into one, and his kind of
like a
this
James Joyce novel.
a heart like a James Joyce novel, exactly. But his kind of his love for the country and the people and the culture, but also the way that that is kind of multifaceted, I suppose. And I'm not
Yeah.
Irish; I have no claims to Ireland, but I really enjoy the way that he discusses it.
Yeah, I feel like you get that. Like, I love Ireland. I love Irish people. Whenever I've met them, great people, great cities over there.
Mm.
Um, uh, like you said, you don't have claims to it. I feel like everyone does. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, people. I bet that gets annoying for Irish people.
Oh, you must think so, especially when it's the Brits doing it as well.
Yeah, I feel like
Um,
they're trying to have to gatekeep their own country.
yeah, exactly. And as I said, I have no Irish blood or anything. I just drink copious amounts of Guinness. That's kind of my only
Yeah,
claim
yeah,
to
no,
it.
so. But you get like
Um,
Killian Murphy, who's like corrects the interviewer, doesn't he? If he's
yeah,
when
yeah.
they've said, "Oh, you," I think they might have called him British, and he's like, "No, no,
No, I'm
I'm
Irish.
Irish." Yeah,
Yeah, and I
I do
think
like that.
you got to respect that sort of thing
Yeah.
because, and this is neither the time nor the podcast to get into it, but the colonial history between
Mm,
Britain and Ireland and the way that, in particular, various British governments have acted to Ireland and Irish people. What else do you expect him to do?
yeah. No, I like it. Like it. Pride in the country. Yeah, and you
Yeah,
get that across the
exactly.
board. You get that across the board, don't you?
Yeah, again, not the right podcast for this discussion.
No, definitely not. Back onto the music then.
I think Murder Capital, that first album of theirs is like the most beautiful sort of bottled instance of grief and anger and rage. And do you know the story behind that record?
No, I don't think so. Well, I've
It
listened
was
to the
it was
record.
written around one of their close friends killed himself, and
Okay,
it's the fallout therein. And one of their first ever gigs was as support of Fontaines DC,
right. Yeah,
and they've kind of since maybe not followed in their footsteps, but yeah, it's an incredible record, and it's very like despondent and angry and sad, and it's all kind of bottled in this amazing bit of it's kind of rage, but it's like I said, it's grief and it's anger and it's
yeah,
I think it's a masterpiece. I'm going to go as far as saying that the debut Murder Capital record is a masterpiece because it
yeah,
is the circumstances around the creation of that record are so like horrifying, but
yeah,
what came out of it and as a result of it is absolutely insane. It's like
yeah.
one of the best things that I have ever heard. It's called When I Have Fears, and I should have known that.
Yeah, they've flown under the radar slightly if you're going to compare them to Fontaines. I think
Yeah,
they've just with Gigi's recovery, I think they got #1 album in Ireland.
Yeah.
But in terms of tiers of popularity, sort of venue sizes, they're definitely below Fontaines. But I feel like they should be maybe on a par now. I think they've
Well, I think the thing that Fontaines have going for them is their like the way that they turned around album one so quickly into album two, and two so quickly into album three,
mm,
meant that there was kind of never a time where if you wanted to see Fontaines DC, if you wanted to pick up an album, there was kind of always something new or something
mm,
fairly fresh from them that you could go and buy or go and see. Whereas the Murder Capital took quite a long break between album one, and like I
yeah,
said, the context of that album, fair enough. It's a difficult thing. My partner saw them very, very early on in like
mm,
a little tiny room in Bristol, and she said that James, in particular, the front man, would be in tears, crying as he's performing these songs
mm,
about his mate that died, and to give that kind of every night for
yeah,
probably what was it, 2 years, and 18 months that they were kind of doing that,
mentally
it's
exhausting,
got to take it
draining.
out of you.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
definitely. Yeah, but
And
they're
they've
another.
kind of gone on since to they've got a support slot with Pearl Jam coming up. They've just been announced as
Yeah,
Nick Cave tour support. They're
yeah, that's
kind of getting
that's
there.
what I've noticed. They're getting the support slots now. They're getting some well
Mm.
sought after support slots. And yeah, I think they got the acclaim with the latest album, which was fair. But I don't know. I think the live show also looks. I've not seen them live, but I've seen videos of them live, and it just looks quite special
Oh, it's
from
insane.
what
I've
I've
seen
seen.
them 3 or 4 times probably. Most recently,
Mm,
was it the start of this year or the end of last year? It was whenever the most recent single came out, Heart in a Hole. It was kind of around that sort of time, and that was brilliant. And they are such a fantastically tight live band. They're really good. They are. I don't know. The same as Fontaines DC. I might even prefer the Murder Capital to Fontaines DC. I think,
big,
which is a
big
big call.
statement. It's a big call. It's a big call. Not for me just yet, but
Mm.
they're getting there. That might be my favorite album out of them. Out of if you
What,
combined,
Gigi?
yeah. However, I
It
just
is
think the
good.
consistency of Fontaines
Oh
across the
yeah, you
board.
can't
Across
you can't
yeah,
discredit them for that. And they've done that massive tour support with Arctic Monkeys in America, which will
yeah,
have exposed them to a huge amount of new
yeah,
fans, and they're pretty high up the Reading and Leeds bill, which we'll touch on later.
yeah. And I think that's the journey Murder Capital are just starting on now. So,
Yeah,
if we step aside slightly in a genre though, and I've not spoke to you about this band, I don't know what your thoughts are, but
go on.
they definitely have a nepo baby as a frontman. Do
Oh,
you
you're
know
going
who
to
I'm?
tell me about Inhaler, aren't
Yeah, yeah. So
you?
in the sense of Irish prominence, they're massive now. They've kind of
Oh yeah,
got their own huge loyal 1975-esque fan base.
yeah.
Uh,
It is. They've tapped into that sort of market of kind of alternative teenage girls, basically, which is an incredibly lucrative market to tap into, and you see it up and down the country whenever they play. And there's, yeah, I think we spoke about this in the first episode that you and I did together, with people camping out in tents and stuff,
yeah,
and waiting to see them for hours and days. But personally, I don't really rate Inhaler. I thought their first singles were pretty good. The rest of it for me is just sort of indie fodder. There are plenty better Irish bands for my
landfill,
money.
landfill. Yeah, no,
They're not landfill yet, but give them 10 years.
yeah, I think they've got a couple of good songs. I know what you mean, but I'm thinking more in terms of the size and like the island
Mm.
theme. I just thought it was interesting to tap into, especially with it being Bono's son as well. It's Eli Hewson's Bono's son, and obviously they're probably the biggest band from Ireland. You two, would you say?
Um, yeah, I think probably. Whether
Westlife?
people are they Irish, are
Yeah,
they? um, yeah, I think you're probably right. And I know Bono has kind of lost that revolutionary spirit that made him so popular, I think.
Mm.
Um, that's all I'll say on that for now. But he
yeah,
is kind of disappeared up his own arse a bit.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think he lost a lot of fans when he forced an album on everyone's with it
oh my God,
iTunes.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And it was a
but
crap album as well. It was
yeah,
terrible.
10 years actually that album because I was looking at a roundup of like 10-year album anniversaries. But yeah, like
Jesus Christ. That makes me
Inhaler
feel
had
so old.
Inhaler had the indie kind of not dominance, but they had a big breakthrough. And even in like pop, even the world of pop, they've had like Dermot Kennedy,
Hmm.
and more recently he's not broke through yet properly, but Cian de Crow is following a similar path to Dermot Kennedy. So
Right.
it's not just one pocket of music that Irish artists seem to be thriving in. And the
Yeah.
funniest thing about it all is if you say to someone about Irish music, the first thing they'll think of is sort of traditional Irish music. I would say
I'm
they
not
wouldn't
sure.
even go down that route.
I think that might have been the case 100 years ago, perhaps. But
No,
I think you think Sinead O'Connor, U2,
yeah,
Cranberries. I think
but
there's plenty of
you
alternative.
go into a pub though on St. Patrick's Day, and you're going to be hearing "Tell Me Ma" when I go home. You're going to
Yeah,
be
that's
hearing
true.
uh, what is it, Irish Rover and things like that, and
That's just
that.
so far from my area of expertise.
No, but it just intrigues me because like that is what I'd think of if someone said Irish music, but then there's just so much more.
See, I'd immediately go, yeah, Pogues, Cranberries, U2.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
Pogues kind of plays into that side though, doesn't it? It's very
yeah,
much.
that's kind of bridge, perhaps. But then I
Mm.
think, to take it back to the sort of punkier direction, someone that I've been really into is Sprints,
Yeah,
and their first album, Letter to Self, is pretty phenomenal. They're an incredible live band.
yeah. What
They're in
genre would you place
Manchester.
them in?
I'd say they are they're not post-punk. I think they're just kind of punk. It's kind of
Yeah, but
garage punk, garage noise.
they've got a bit of pop punk about them, I think, as well. In terms of
Yeah,
yeah,
there's definitely that sort of
all the punks. They've got all the punks. No,
it's just
they're
really
really
good and
good.
it's punky.
Yeah.
New Dad are another one who I think are exceptional.
Hmm.
I saw them live a few weeks ago and was just absolutely blown away. They did an amazing Cure cover. Or it's
Yeah.
either Love Song or In Between Days. One of those, like one of the big Cure songs.
One of the big
Um,
ones.
and yeah, they've been on like a big rise this year with the album, and
Mm.
I loved that record. Um, who else have I got written down here? Problem Patterns. They're a band who are maybe slightly more of that sort of garage punk, pub punk sort of thing, where it's like a little bit shambolic, but in a really good way. They are also quite pop punk influenced. I interviewed them when their album came out at the end of last year. It's called Blouse Club. Check it
Mm.
out, really good.
Mm.
Um, Male, M brackets H AOL, are a pretty amazing group, all Irish. Again, they've had an EP called Gender Studies, which came out maybe 2 years ago. An album followed. Uh, they are superb. They've recently
Mm.
had some a little lineup change. They've had a brand new song that's come out in the last 10 days, which is really really good.